Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars. Today we're talking with Martin from Mowing and Growing on the Central Coast. He's been in business for longer than I have, but we're interested in the changes he's made over the last few years, employing staff and running crews, how to treat employees, systems and procedures to manage teams, and we talk a lot about equipment. While I'm talking about equipment, I want to give you an update on the Ego commercial pole hedges. The short pole hedger has a fixed head, which makes it a lot like a standard handheld hedger. Quite nimble and great for shaping smaller hedges and topiary. The standard pole hedger has the articulating head that I thought I might be able to swap onto the short pole hedger. This week I had a closer look and I found that the mounting screws do not line up to allow this. Even if you took the liberty to modify the mounting, the articulating lever would catch on the handhold, so it really isn't going to be an option, sorry. Overall, both of these hedges do a great job on the hedges, and I have found the blade speed, the shaft drive, rather than direct drive, and the power and the runtime all make for a great package. They are replacing my previous hedges, and I'm telling you that they are the best I've used.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars, the fresh cut lawn care podcast. We've got Aussie legends and cowboys, seasons and grasses, and we're talking about unique equipment. Prepare to hear the real-life tales of local stars. Plus, we have the latest equipment, reviews, and exciting interviews with the best suppliers. We will dig the fertile field of stories from part-time solo operators who are living the life, along with those of growth-focused entrepreneurs, identifying what makes a business successful. We really do cover it all.
Well, welcome to the dungeon officially.
Well, it's good to be here, Gary. How you going?
Yeah, I'm a bit hot and dusty today. It's been one of those dry days, hasn't it?
It's been a pretty dry season. What do you think about the season so far? They said that it was going to be a dry one, and
it's a bit confusing. We're both on the Central Coast, New South Wales, and we've had some really heavy rainfall in the last couple of weeks, but overall the ground is still really dry.
Yeah, I think we'll probably, to break this mini drought that we're in, I suppose, probably need about a week of rain.
Yeah. We would need just constant rain for 4 or 5 days just to get the ground to start absorbing the water again instead of it just running off.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like spring hasn't really kicked off, and because the lawns are still pretty dry, it doesn't feel like it's quite kicked off for our growing season.
Yeah. So it's funny because in a lot of places the grass is green and it's growing, but you can just see the ground is dry underneath, and when you mow, it's just creating a dust bowl.
Yeah. I think last season we had a lot of rain.
Yeah.
Last season.
It was one of the wettest seasons I've seen.
For about over 6 months non-stop.
Yep.
And it got that bad that we had we couldn't get on our acreage properties, so we started whippersnippering them by hand. And we were sort of mowing what we could mow, and then we'd get onto these big properties, and there was just places we couldn't take on the zero turns, the heavy machinery. So we ended up whippersnippering them. And then I remember right at the end of winter, the rain started to ease off, and then we sort of kicked into spring, and it just went bonkers, and we were right into the season straight away.
Yeah.
And, so besides all that rain, last season was a pretty good season, and this season's been totally opposite.
Well, last season I started installing robotic mowers, and I found the robotic mowers could mow those areas where the ride-on would just sink in and make ruts or get bogged. So I'm like, okay, I want robotic mowers on everything.
You're winning on that one, eh?
It was a massive win for that. There was several areas where I would try and put the ride on and it just couldn't do it. Put a robotic mower there, and all of a sudden it's like that's kept looking like a golf course. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them in action, and it took me some little bit of convincing that robotic mowers could do what they could do.
Yeah.
I don't use them in my business, but I've watched other people, and there's a couple of sites around where we work that have them, and they surely do a good job.
Yeah, they do. And the best way to explain that is that for a robotic mower, at the moment anyway, they live in one place and they just keep that place tidy by mowing 24/7, basically. That's the best way to use a robotic mower. And then you do the extra work around them, the edges and the gardening and that sort of thing. I think, I don't know if you saw it, but I had a bit of a play with the FJ Dynamics robotic zero turn last week.
Oh, okay.
And that's a 42-inch zero turn that you put a
Yeah.
GPS beacon up in the area where you're going to mow or just beside the area. And then you hop on the zero turn, you do a lap of the perimeter of the area, and then you hop off and it does the mowing.
All right.
So that,
No, I haven't
in a
seen that.
sense, that'll offer contractors an option where they can take that to a job. It mows while they do the gardening or the edges, and then they put it back in their trailer and move on to the next job.
That's pretty good to if you're a solo operator or even if you have employees and
Yeah.
they can work as a one-man unit sort of thing and knock out more work. So
Yeah.
is that like fitted to any type of zero-turn mower? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, that's specifically made by FJ Dynamics. So it's a battery-powered zero turn. It's about $45,000 for a
Okay.
42-inch zero turn that's set up with all the gear for the robotics.
Okay. Because there is, I thought it might have been similar to the right ZK or right standard mowers where they're
Yeah.
fitting their machines with
Yeah, so it's similar
robotics.
concept to that, but the FJ Dynamics is here and the right is not here. And
Okay.
the other big difference is that the FJ Dynamics is not a package that you could use yet. Even though I had a play with it and used it on one site, it's not a polished package. So I would not be comfortable telling a contractor, hey, buy this for $45,000 and it'll revolutionize your business. No, it's not there
Yeah.
yet.
So what do you think about like on the Central Coast, especially on acreage properties? We got a lot of the terrain is hills or
Yeah.
gullies or that type of thing. Could it handle those
No,
type of terrains, or is it
not a
just flat,
chance.
like a football field type of flat
So
paddock?
you know how it works, right? If you're on the stander yourself or sitting on a zero turn and you've got a slope, you work that mower according to the slope. So you turn facing uphill, you never turn facing downhill. This mower
Yeah,
doesn't know how to do that.
yeah, yeah.
So it's
So
not smart enough to think about the slopes. So
not quite
it
there
will
yet.
get stuck.
Yeah. So, but that would be perfect on sporting ovals,
Yeah.
that type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, flat areas or relatively flat areas, large open areas, it's going to save you time because you don't have to be sitting on the mower.
Yeah.
But I think the right's going to do a better job than what the FJ Dynamics does at this point in time. And the right's
Yeah.
running a bigger machine, which means it's going to be more productive.
Yeah. But
But
I've watched quite a lot of footage on the right
yeah,
and how they map it out, so on
yeah,
and so forth. But I've never seen that go on hills either. I've only seen it go on pretty large properties that are quite flat.
yeah,
But yeah, I suppose it's all move in the right direction if
yeah.
you want to go that way with your business type of thing.
Well, the right is inherently more stable on slopes than what the FJ Dynamics is. So
Okay.
that and the fact that the right is actually working better, it's doing a consistent job and it's working every time, whereas the FJ Dynamics was a bit hit and miss in terms of whether it would start in the right place, whether it would stick to its map properly.
Yeah.
So anyway, food for thought. But we're here to talk about you.
I've got plenty to talk about.
Oh, we do. We got a lot to talk about because I know you've been in business longer than I have. So I started back in 2010.
So I was 2005. We
Yeah.
formed our business. So we're going on to our 18th. This will be our 18th season,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
so it's been a long journey. But when I look back, it's just gone just like that.
Yeah.
And it's been a good journey. So we've progressed through different stages in our business.
Yeah.
And that sort of, we always, my wife and I formed the business back in 2005, and we sort of we sort of grew the business to suit our lifestyle and our family. We've got quite a large family.
Yeah.
So we've progressed through different stages of when your family grows up, and we're
Yep.
sort of like growing our business, or we've shaped our business to the way that our lifestyle, that we wanted to live our life sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's been really good, and just a good journeys, a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and a lot of personal growth, and also a lot of just a lot of learning, and still learning, which is good.
Yeah. And let's face it, if you're going to be in business and you want to do well, you've got to be open to learning the whole time, don't you?
Never stop learning. Like I'm an avid reader, and a lot of the stuff that I've learnt hasn't been within our industry. I always look out towards other industries and
Yep.
just learn what I can and take little bits and pieces and try to adapt them to our business or the way I do things and the way I work,
Yeah.
and it all helps. Yeah.
I remember when I first saw you, it was on Instagram or YouTube. I think it was Instagram though.
Uh-huh.
And then I looked up your channel on YouTube, and your Kiwi accent was probably a little bit thicker back then.
What was it? I was a bit rough around the edges back then. I'm a bit more refined. It must be all that reading.
all the reading and all the vision boards.
Yeah, a lot of vision boards. Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of that stuff. You and I have talked about vision boards before.
Yeah.
So I think I started doing vision boards back in, I want to say it's about 2012. And
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
actually thinking about a few things the other day about vision boards and that type of thing. And where we are in business at the moment, probably about 6 years ago, I had a vision board of where I wanted the direction of our business to go, sort of thing. And I don't do it too often now, but back then I'd do vision boards, and I also put up. I'll also write a lot, so I do
Yeah.
a 10-year plan where I want it to be in 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, and then I'll break that down to 2 years,
Yep.
and then 1 year, and then I'll break it down even further into monthly,
Yeah.
and then I'll break it down into weekly, and then I'll have my every day I'll write out a card, and that card will have 5 things to do on that list,
Yeah.
and so that was always pushing us towards where we wanted to be, and yeah, a lot of it's sort of come true, and it's only been probably in the last 18 months when
Yeah.
I'm looking back at the ways we've sort of tried to plan things out and just find a direction where we want to go in our business, and what it will bring back to us, and also what we can give back to the community and others we come in contact with within
Yep.
our business, customers and employees. So it's I think it's good to sit down and plan out and just think ahead.
Yep.
It's been a good exercise for us. We don't do it on so much of a big scale like we did back then, but we still have our little routines that we do. We
Yeah.
just try to
Well,
make sure we do things the right way.
I I remember we first met in 2019
That was it.
at the Diesel Dirt and Turf.
Yeah, it was. That's right.
Yeah. And at that point in time, I was going through my own challenges, struggling with a new diagnosis with celiac disease, a few different challenges then. And I know you were doing pretty well with your online content at that stage. But then when I started the podcast, a lot of your online content, you were just sort of hiding under the surface for a while because you were so focused on building your business. And I think the difference between when I started the podcast and now, your business has grown. Would you say it's grown about 4 or 5 times, do you think? Certainly multiplied.
Since 2019, it probably has, but probably over the last 3 years, it's doubled. Each year, it's doubled in turnover, and our profits right up. And I've tried to do that each year with, how would you put it? Not doubling how many people we employ, but just getting better with systems and procedures and training and cross-training the employees that we do have. And I'd say since 2019, we've grown quite a lot. But a lot
Yeah.
has happened since 2019, like with me personally.
Yep.
And also, I got to a stage with the social media, it can sort of suck up a lot of your time.
Yeah.
Just like anything, if you put something a lot into it, you're going to get a lot back, and I just didn't have the time to do everything. So I thought, well, do I want to grow and have more followers through these different platforms that I was putting a lot of my energy into, or do I need to grow this business? And I chose to sort of grow the business. Yeah, I can see you now, Gary.
I just realised I didn't have my dungeon lights going, so fixed it up.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, so your business has grown a lot in that time, and I know when I first met you, you had one or two employees, but you're probably in a position where I've been, where sort of have one, get rid of them, have one, get rid of them, and keep an employee through the summer, drop them off in winter, sort of attitude. And then that's been my case. I'm not sure if you would agree that was happening for you back then, but now you've got how many employees?
We're up to our core guys. We've got six guys working for us. That's our core guys.
Yeah.
And then when we get big jobs on, I've got access to casuals.
Yep.
So that's how we tend to work it, and we look after our six core guys. And it's been a long time to build a really good team.
Yeah.
And understand how to build a really good team, and understand what that team needs from you, and understand how to hire the right people, and what happens when someone comes into your tight circle that doesn't quite fit. Do you give them a chance, or do you just see how they go, or do you just get rid of them straight away and sort of not protect what you've got, but I suppose protect what you sort of got there. So so that's sort of what I've learnt with employees. I think just touching on what you said about when I first started employing, I had people. I had no idea how to be a boss, a leader, what these people needed from me, what I should expect from my employees. Even simple things like training employees, getting them to understand what's important when they're out in the field.
Yep.
And then probably the biggest thing from changing from like getting off the tools. So I'm pretty much 90% off the tools now. It's just letting go and putting trust into those young people, so they can you want to trust these young people so they can go out and have a bit of responsibility and own what they're doing.
Yep.
And I think that's how you get longevity and get people to stick around in your business. Instead of barking orders at them and like micromanaging. If you give them a little bit of responsibility and encourage them and give them self-confidence, it goes a long way for them to just being in a place where they can come to work and they feel appreciated, they're paid well, and they're working in a good environment. So that's what my wife and I have tried to build over the last probably last year and a half to 2 years. Yeah.
I know most of us will struggle with what you were just saying in terms of micromanaging a new employee, particularly when we start employing for the first time, really micromanaging, trying to control what they do, what we would consider training, but it's not actually training. It's just treating them badly and expecting them to treat our business with the same respect that we treat it.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
That's
it's not
right.
going to happen, Gary. We're passionate about what we do in our businesses as business owners and entrepreneurs, because we were there from day one and we started it from scratch. And no one sees what happens behind the scenes, even they don't see us.
Yeah.
Like my wife and I, up till 9 or 10 o'clock, just trying certain times of the year, just trying to get things together and put in new systems and procedures into our business, or doing extra courses or something to help us understand how to get our businesses to run better. No one really sees that, so they're never going to be as passionate as us working in our business. But you can create within a team environment with your employees, I think, a bit of passion there within them, just so they're proud of the work that they put out. I think that's really important. So I'm a big rugby union fan, and I've just adopted a lot what I learnt as being a team player when I was playing sport, and
Yeah.
also look at other teams and read a lot of autobiographies on coaches and football teams and how they got this mentality, how they run their organisation, and the people on the outside, and how everyone's in for working towards the same vision. And I think that's important to get that sort of culture in a business if you can, and create that sort of culture. But for us, and that took a long time to learn all those things, and also a long time to try and instill that into the people, our employees, and that. And we're not even quite really there yet, but I think we're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. Learning culture is really hard thing when you got to make it up as you go, isn't it? I know for me, first time I've employed somebody,
Yeah.
I expected them to be like me, which was a pretty toxic place to be, really. And then after a while, it's like, okay, if I want to treat an employee well, I've got to not push them to work themselves to the bone and then pay them terribly. And got to start thinking about what they need as an employee. And that would probably even be better for me if I treat myself with that same respect.
Um, uh, I just think when you bring on a new employee, like if you're starting off with one employee, it's pretty hard, and you're sort of hiring someone off a 20-minute interview, and then
Yeah.
you find out a week later what they're really like.
Yep.
I think as you employ more and more people, and you start getting one or two people in your business that are the right fit and you can
Yep.
work with, and when you're out there working together side by side with them, you're treating them as an equal,
Yeah.
and you get them to a certain level through encouragement, um, and also training. I think when you bring other people in under them, it gets a lot easier. And then there's going to be a point when you have to, where the new employees come in, that's where we're pretty much at it now, because we still want to grow. We still want to employ more people. But we're doing it at a pretty slow rate, I feel.
Yeah.
That those new people, the new people that are coming in, I can't be there to be there like 5 days a week working next to them. So
Fair.
then you rely on those core guys to pass their knowledge on to them. And
Yeah.
then it's almost like you have to teach them to let go as well.
Yep.
And for instance, say if you've got a team of gardeners or something, and like one head gardener who's got a lot of experience, and then he brings someone else in, you can't. You've got to teach the head gardener, mate. You can't just have this guy picking up behind you. You need to get him on the tools and get him using the
Yep.
tools, because that would happen, right?
Yeah.
So you got to make the team as strong as possible. So if, like no one's going to stick around forever, but if one of them leave, you got you still got a strong team. It shouldn't affect
Yeah.
your team. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to grow here. Yeah. So and we're just starting. So there's a long way to go. So
And
and we're sort of trying to we're sort of learning as we go.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you send employees out without you,
Yeah.
you've got to have a lot of trust in what they're doing. But you're sending out, what is it? You've got 3 or 4 vehicles you send out at a time now?
We got 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you got 4 vehicles going in different directions, you got to have a lot of trust that those employees are going to work well together, because I would
Yeah.
assume you run 2-man teams in those vehicles most of the time.
Yeah, two-man teams. When we get real busy and we got other people coming in, we'll have maybe 3 men sometimes on
Yeah.
acreage, big jobs
Yep.
that could go up. Yeah,
And
but
when you're
normally if
training a
they're
new
on a
employee, I guess 3-man team is a good way to make sure that there's productivity happening.
yeah. Um, yeah, I think two-men teams seem to work out really well. But if we get big cleanups, we'll just throw as many people on it as we can.
Yeah.
We
Fair
did
enough.
a big cleanup, and it took, I want to say, 2.5 months, and we threw everyone on it. We got all the casuals in, and then we only had on the side. We only had two people running our normal operations.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was a good learning curve. That big job that went on for 2.5 months, and we're still I want to say we're still not quite where we want to be, and it's been 5.5 months now on that property. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's the property I'm sort of tied to.
Yep.
So that's the property I'm on the tools on, is that one property.
Yeah. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
And I haven't let go of that property. Talking about letting go.
That's a tough one, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I can see that running a business as you grow, you get attached to customers or jobs that you're working, and it's hard to pull yourself away from that.
Yeah. Um, attached to some customers that are worth a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's hard to trust your employees that they'll look after that and have your best intentions at heart when they're working there.
I think I think our core guys, I trust all of them. So I haven't stepped out and done an acreage day on our acreage runs
Yeah.
for uh, must be 18 months.
Wow.
I haven't even gone on a run. I haven't gone on a run on a residential run for probably the same couple of years.
Yeah. Wow.
But I seem to be tied into this gardening stuff at the moment, and I never really was into gardening. So our niche when we started
The fun jobs.
many years ago was ride-on mowing, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to build this big ride-on mowing business, and I didn't really care about anything else. I wanted to. That was our niche, and it would have been going back in probably about 2007 or eight
Yeah.
that I got my first ride-on mower. And I said, "This is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to concentrate on." Yeah, so that was our niche, and I sort of let that go. I've got a couple of really good guys that can run the acreage run like really well,
Yeah.
and no complaints from customers. They smash up the mowers a bit now and again because they want to go too fast, but
Yep.
no, they're really productive, and yeah, so pretty
Yeah.
happy how that side of things are going. And the residential lawns are probably pretty easy to let go of because it's cookie cutter
Yep.
type of work. Whereas probably our two least experienced guys are on the residential,
Yeah.
and I tend to send guys that are not that experienced onto the residential because every residential home that you mow is pretty much always going to be the
Yeah.
same pattern. But gardening at the moment is, I'm finding I'm putting a lot of time into gardening, like quoting, doing one-off jobs, um, doing walkthroughs, meeting guys on site.
Yeah.
It seems to be chewing up a lot of my time,
That's funny
but
that
which
the
is
jobs which
okay.
you'd
Yeah,
normally turn down because you want to do the ride-on mowing jobs, and now that's where you're
yep.
putting all your time.
I know it's very strange. Yeah, but I think, to tell you the truth, I think it's. I'm finding like gardening is pretty easy to. It's like an extra service that you can get into or build into really quickly and can
Yeah.
build up really quickly,
Yep.
because as soon as us guys, and I was the same too, as soon as us guys get into the season, we just, well, I'll say about 80% of people just don't worry about gardens, and
Yeah.
people out there in the community are struggling to find people that want to do gardening.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
the work's out there. So I thought, well, if I'm turning down so much work from our current customers gardening,
Yeah.
that we might as well take it on board and
Yeah.
capitalise on it. Yeah, and now I'm sort of really starting to enjoy it. Yeah, and yeah, so it's been good.
So that means you'd be starting to buy some of the expensive hand tools, all the secateurs and the all the silky saws, all that sort of thing.
All the shares, the
Yeah.
nice clippers, and then I just have to figure out how to use them. Yeah, because there's an art to a lot of the all the hand tools that they use. Like we've been doing on one of our properties. We'll probably trim 95% of all the shrubs and hedges
Yeah.
with, well, not so much hedges, but all the shrubs with hand shearers,
Yep.
secateurs, hand saws,
Yeah.
and very rarely will we pull out like a battery pole saw or battery battery head trimmers.
Yeah.
And we were pretty much instructed to do it that way. That's the way they wanted it done.
Yep.
So we had to learn pretty quick, and we're still learning. So it's
It is a big learning curve, that's for sure. I know the first time I got a silky saw, because I've had plenty of hand saws like that before,
yeah.
but the first time I got a silky saw, I went and cut something really fibrous with it, and the fibers get caught in between the blades, and I went and used my fingers to just pull the fibers out of the blades,
Ooh,
cut my fingers straight open.
yeah.
And I thought I was doing it in a really safe way, and I was like, wow, that thing is so sharp. Respect.
And we also got into the last, was it 18 months? Must be the last year and a half. We got into battery equipment, hand equipment,
Yeah.
which was a move in the right direction. And I should have moved quicker, faster, earlier. And I was just so stubborn. I stayed with the petrol for so long, and I got this. I got a pole saw. Sorry, a pole hedge trimmer. It was a still one, and I remember the first time I climbed the ladder and went to start it, and I thought, "What the heck have I been doing?" All you got to do is push the button.
Yeah.
None of this pulling a cord or anything
Mate,
like that.
it's game changing, isn't it?
Yeah.
When it
No.
comes to hedge trimmers and pole saws and chainsaws, the benefit of battery, and it's safer, but it's just easier for you to operate it, and it's
Yeah.
so worth making the switch.
And I actually thought that. So I went out and bought. So I stuck with still because I had all the attachments from our petrol
Oh yes, the
equipment.
multi tools. Yeah,
Yeah, so I thought I'd get some combi. I started off with a combi system, and used all the attachments, and then
yep,
just went on from there and got some hedge trimmers and that type of thing. So I went out and bought about 6 or 7 batteries,
yeah.
thinking that I'm going to need all these batteries. Anyway, I could put one guy on a hedge trimmer all day and use one battery.
That's great, isn't it?
That's how good it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was really pleasantly surprised.
yeah. It's not the case when you go to a battery whippersnipper or a battery blower. They go through the batteries a lot quicker, but with the hedge trimmers, they're so efficient.
So I did a test on Husqvarna
Yep.
whippersnipper battery,
Yeah.
and it didn't seem to have. I can't remember the model number, but
It'd be the
it got through.
520. Because I think you
Yeah,
spoke to me about it at the time. You tried the 520. I've been using the 520 for a long time.
yeah,
They're a little bit underpowered compared to others.
yeah. I think I was really excited because I thought this thing is light. You know what I can do with this thing? It's so light, and I was pretty excited. And then I did take it out, and it could. I can't remember how many lawns I got through, but I came to one long lawn and it wouldn't get through it. And then I
Yeah.
think it actually, I wasn't too sure if it overheated or something.
It
Something
probably
happened to.
flattened the battery in about 10 minutes because I know
Yes,
that's what I've found with that model. If you're doing routine work, which is just really lightweight work, then it will go for 2 hours runtime. But if you get into the thicker stuff, it will drain the battery in 10, 15 minutes.
yeah, yeah. So that's what I found. So and then I tested the still
Yeah.
with the combi attachment on the whip snipper, and it had exactly the same power as it would like a
A
petrol,
petrol. Yeah.
or even a bit more powerful than a petrol. But it just felt that it wasn't balanced. I didn't really like it. Like it was a bit heavy.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had a 300 battery in there. I suppose you could put a lighter battery in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was looking at like trying to get everything on acreage, at least the handhelds on to battery,
Yeah.
and but I haven't really taken it any further. But I think there will be one day where we can get everything going to battery. So
Yeah.
we're probably spending probably about 5,000 a month on 6,000 a month on petrol.
Wow.
And
That's a lot, isn't it?
I'd say when I was on the tools and I was in the truck doing the acreage myself, just on the acreage truck by itself, we're probably spending about and petrol was cheaper then.
Yeah.
What it would be probably between 180 to 200 every second day, and that was just for mowers
Yeah.
and handhelds.
Yep.
So it all adds up.
Oh yeah, adds up very
Yeah.
quickly.
So I'm just waiting for the second generation of all those battery mowers to come
Yep.
out, so they can bring the price down for us, and we can all go out and buy them.
Yeah, look, I think it's still a little way off before we're running around on battery-powered zero turns and standers to do all of our work. But the handheld tools, I think we're there. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at the moment at getting a battery power station, is what they call it, which is basically a big battery with an inverter already connected to it. And get a battery power station like that, chuck it in the back of your ute, put a solar panel on top, and connect it up so it's charging off the ute or off the solar panel, and that'll get you through a full day recharging your batteries as you go, so that you don't have to worry about having a mountain of batteries, because you can just use that to keep them going.
So is that available over here, or you can get that type of setup over here? Can you?
Oh, look, there's plenty of options around. I guess it just depends on how much power you need, because you're paying for the amount of watt hours of battery that you put in there. So you
Yeah.
get a battery power station that has, say, 2 kilowatts of power to draw from, and you're paying, I think, from memory, somewhere around $3,000 to $5,000,
Okay.
and
That's not too
that's
bad.
decent.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah. So that'll probably, if you put a solar panel on it as well, and you've got it recharging from your car, that's going to probably do a 2-man crew. I spoke to Aidan Andrews earlier this year and asked him if I could borrow a ZK61 to test and compare with other machines I've been using. For those who know my podcast, you'll know I'm comparing with commercial quality machines. The Right ZK build quality stacks up with other commercial machines in every way. I've followed Right and their entry to Australia for a few years now, especially because they have one of the longest histories in stand-on mowers, and not least because they implement unique features to improve belt life, lower centre of gravity, and a deck design that achieves more and with better results, regardless of if you use their standard blades or the legendary gator blades to mulch those clippings down real fine. Under strict instructions from Kyle and Aidan, I have sent it with the ZK through mud and on steep slopes, and through tall thick grass, thick lush couch, and a dusty, thinning, drought-ridden grass. The ZK has proven it is such a capable machine. The productivity of a 60-inch class machine with high ground speed, low downtime, and efficient maintenance make this machine one of the best options for wide areas, and so manoeuvrable around tight spaces without risking damage to the turf. After a long-term trial, I am convinced I should buy this machine for my business.
I think the Toro Evolutions, I think they're available here now. I've seen it
Yes.
somewhere. They're
Yeah.
available here.
I
And
interviewed Brenton Winterbourne. He's in West Australia, and he was getting one of the first ones shipped to Australia. So I'm pretty sure he's had it for a little while now, a few months.
Okay, I'll have to listen to that episode. Yeah, because I've done a little bit of research on them, and then apparently the power's there. So the power's there, and the longevity and for the battery to last is there.
Yeah.
But I'm not too sure if the price is there yet.
Well, I guess it depends how you value the price. How much fuel is it going to save you? Because that's probably where it
Yeah.
comes down to.
Yeah,
I think Greenworks have got the 32-inch and I think a 48-inch standard available now. Toro's got their Evolution series.
yeah,
I think it's going to be a little while before Skag or any of the other brands have their battery standards or zero turns here.
yeah. So I think so there's no maintenance, no oil, no belts.
That's right.
I spend a lot of money on belts.
Yeah.
A lot of money on belts. Yeah. And also just weighing up the longevity of the actual machine, the actual body of the machine, because I know when you hit around 1,000 hours on any zero turn, if you're really putting it to hard work day in, day out, you get
Yeah.
the wear and tear and things start going wrong. And if you've got different operators, like you
Yep.
are using employees, they're
Yep.
going to hit something. So
That's
they'll
right.
end up hitting something. You can't, yeah. So that's other things I've looked at as well. Whether the longevity, 1,000 hours, we'll probably get through 1,000 hours in a couple of years quite
Yeah,
easily.
easily.
Yeah,
I think if I'm running one machine on my own, I'm doing 1,000 hours in about 3.5 to 4 years.
yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you've got a 2-man team out there working a machine, they're going to do, probably 12 months to 2 years.
Yeah. So we've got how many miles? We've got how many zero turns? about 50 turns, and
Yeah.
I think my lowest one is around about 400 hours.
Yeah.
And then the highest is over 2,000 hours, and and that's the Toro Z Master, and I'm only using that for pretty much rough job slashing,
Yeah.
and it still goes well, but probably the cut quality is not as good. So if you look at it, like I say, a $25,000, what did I work it out to be? $25,000 machine, $18,000 to $25,000 machine. I think you're working out, and you want to work that into your cost of running that machine and put that into your hourly rate. I think on average, for a decent commercial 0-10, you're looking at about $20 an hour.
Yeah. Sounds right.
So if you're charging it yourself out, I don't know how they do it, but I would just say $100. You've already spent $20 on to replace that machine an hour.
Yeah.
So I think I worked that off 2,000 hours, and that's pretty generous.
Well, interestingly, in the US, if you buy a petrol powered zero turn that's a 60-inch machine, and then you buy the battery powered version of the equivalent, it's about double of what the petrol powered machine is. So if the petrol powered machine costs you $20 an hour, the battery powered machine will cost you $40 an hour. But that's US. In Australia, it seems like they're about triple.
Yeah,
So the cost of the Mean Green, you and I both went and did the demo with the Mean
yeah,
Green
that's right.
back last year. That was coming in under $60,000 at that point in time for the 60-inch there.
So
It was.
52. Do I want to say it's $52,000? Was it from memory?
It's now
Around there?
70 something.
Oh my gosh!
So it's gone up that much in that amount of time. It's over $70,000 for the same machine.
So yeah,
So that's interesting. There's a number of options out there now. Gravely have got a nice battery EV that I did a test on recently. That was pretty decent.
that's the sit down. Is that the sit down 0-10?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a sit
I've seen
down, and I
those.
think it was a 52-inch machine I tested.
Yeah. So
That's good.
what was it compared to the Greenworks that we
The
tested?
Mean Green that I
The mean
so
green. Sorry, the mean green. Yeah.
Yeah, the Mean Green we tested, and then the Gravely. I prefer the Gravely over the Mean Green, but the Mean Green had more battery capacity. So the Mean Green would get through a 7-hour day where
Yeah.
it's mowing for actual 7 hours. The Gravely probably about 4 or 5 hours.
4 or 5 hours isn't too bad. I don't
Well,
think.
a two-man team, unless you're doing a lot of really big
Yeah.
acreage, you probably don't
Yeah.
need more than 4 or 5 hours to get through a day.
Yeah. So if you run 2 0-10s, that's probably efficient. 2 0-10s. If you're running two of them,
Yeah.
and then 2-man crew, that should be plenty. So with the Gravely, did it seem to hold it seemed to be a bit more stable on the ground? Not stable. What would you call it?
Smoother. The operation was
Yeah.
smoother than the Mean Green.
I felt like the mean green bounced around a bit.
Yeah.
Did you feel that?
Yes, definitely noticed that on the Mean Green. I think it was going for really lightweight, so it had
Yeah.
the full aluminium body and aluminium deck. The whole lot was
Yeah.
as lightweight as they could make it, and it felt lightweight. But
Yeah. It
the
felt.
Gravely doesn't feel lightweight like that, and the whole thing just feels smoother to use. I still think it's not the same as having a hydraulic drive. So when you're using the levers for the zero turn, they're not as smooth as a hydraulic drive is.
And not as responsive as well. Is that what you mean?
No, maybe too twitchy,
Okay.
but not as twitchy as the Mean Green.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I felt the mean green was just a bit too light, and because
yeah,
they were trying to get it as light as possible, because for battery reasons, I suppose.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but I suppose you'll get used to it. Like any mower, once you drive it, you sort of get used to those type of things, and also its limitations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. So yeah, I guess we will get there, but at the moment, it's I just couldn't justify spending the money on it for the benefit.
Yeah. So is that why you've sort of gone to the um,
The robotic
battery
mowers.
mowers, the robotic mowers?
Yeah, so
Part of the reason?
well, the robotic mowers that I'm working with at the moment, I've got 4 of them operating on site. That reduces my mowing workload by about 1/3.
Is that your commercial site?
Yes.
around the corner from one of our sites, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big site, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping to put another robotic mower on there shortly that will do almost 2 acres. And that's going to
Yeah.
cut that'll cut my mowing workload down again. So I'm gradually get more and more robots on there and reduce my mowing workload, which means that I can have between myself and an employee doing the edges and the gardening work, and not a lot of mowing work.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is that how many acres? How many acres do you think that
The
site is?
site is about 22 hectares, but there's about 20 acres of mowing.
20 acres of mowing. That's a lot of mowing. So 28 acres of mowing. I want to say 18 acres of mowing I did on the Skag,
Yeah,
but on the property, and it was hills. This big property out that we've got out in um, past Fountaindale, around that
yeah,
area. Uh, so I was doing that about 6.5 hours on a Skag,
yeah,
but I didn't have to trim anything, just mow.
yeah.
Best job ever.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I've been doing this property for a couple of years now, and I was doing it with my walker, which had 42-inch deck on it, and then swapped the deck over to the 56-inch deck to do the larger areas. So all the tight areas, 42-inch deck with the mulch plug, and then go out to the wide open areas, it'd be 56-inch deck just side discharging. I was doing it all with that, and so now I've got about a third of it done with the robotic mowers, and I've got the right ZK 61-inch machine.
yeah.
So the right ZK is a higher productivity than the Walker. So
What was your cutting deck on the right again?
it's 61.
61. So
Yeah.
you'll be high productivity on that.
Yeah, so it's sort
Just
of comparable to what you're doing with your Skag if it's a 61-inch machine.
yeah. So it was 61 inch. And so how do you find? Because I know you're a big Walker fan, and I came from Walkers as well.
Yeah.
So I used to own a Walker MT, and I stopped using, but I never owned. Uh, Sorry, what was the Walker that you own? That you run
The
the
B
Walkers?
series. So the B
Yeah, the
series
Bear
is
series.
dedicated for mulching or side discharge.
Yeah. So I never owned a B series, but just the MT, and I moved away from Walkers and catching just because of the. I found that I could get through a lot more work just with side shooting or mulching,
Yes.
and be more efficient and just pump out the work lot more.
And that's what
But
I found with
yeah,
the B series Walker. It's a really productive machine, but it moves along at about 12 to 14 kilometres an hour. So for doing tight residential properties, sort of from 500 square metres through to an acre, the 42-inch deck on the Walker, it's a really productive unit. It's
yeah,
very manoeuvrable. It's really good on the steep slopes. So
yeah,
for that size, I would struggle to find any other 42-inch machine that will keep up with the Walker. But when it comes to the wide open areas, then the Walker, even with the 56-inch deck on it, it's not going to be anywhere near as productive as going to a 61-inch stand on.
yeah. So when I gave up the Walker, I also considered the cut quality. So
Yeah.
because you're never going to get that cut quality with that out front deck compared to a mid mount deck,
Yes.
like your. If you're a good operator on a mid-mount deck, like a standard mower, and like the mower's running properly and your deck's level and all that sort of thing, if you're a good operator, you can put out some good work. But I don't feel you're going to get quite that cut that
Yeah.
Walker's known for. So I gave up. That nice cut
Yeah.
for speed and
Yeah. Higher productivity.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I think there's pros and cons with either of those there because the out front deck floats along the slope of the land. So it is going to give a closer cut without scalping, which makes it look more like a golf course. But at the same time, because it floats, if you have a hole in the ground, if one of the wheels on the front drops into a hole, then it will scalp quicker than a bigger deck will.
yeah, yeah. So it will drop. Yeah, because it will drop. The whole thing will drop down,
Yeah.
and it won't. it won't stay off the ground, sort of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you're
Whereas when
saying.
you're
Yeah,
working over a crest of a hill or something like that, the walker is
mm.
much more likely to go over the crest of the hill without scalping, whereas the
Scalping.
bigger deck is much more likely to scalp in that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think when you've got changing terrain, then the walker is going to 9 times out of 10 give a better finish than the mid mount machines. But I've been using the ZK for 6 months now, and where I know what I'm doing with the land, I can get a really neat finish with the ZK. There's only one or two areas where you just know it's not going to perform quite as clean as what the walker did.
yeah.
But
Okay.
it reduces the amount of time I spend mowing
Yeah,
hugely.
yeah. So, and did you? So, what did you go? Why did you go for the ZK? Any particular reason over, say, Skag? Is ZK quite local to you? Like
Um, so
dealers.
I
I
did
mean,
look
sorry,
at
right?
I did look at both of those options, and I also looked at a Husqvarna stander as well. One of the main reasons I like the ZK or any of the rights that are commercial end rights, they have the motor moves up and down with the deck, so it keeps your center of gravity lower, and your belt's not flexing every time you change the deck height.
Yeah, yeah.
So I looked at that and I was like, okay, that clearly Wright has put a lot of thought into that design, and it's going to, when you're talking about machines getting up over 1,000 hours, the ZK is going to be using less belts than what the Skag will be using.
So we've got a few problems with Skag, and I've got a few issues with Skag.
Yeah.
Going through belts, flogging out pulley tensioners.
Yes.
So I'll just started holding spare pulley springs or whatever you
Okay.
want
Yeah.
tensioners.
How many
And
hours
trying
is on
to
that Skag now?
that Skag is I haven't looked lately because I haven't been on it. It must be getting up there. It must be about nearly 15,
Yeah.
between
That's what I
12,
figured.
12 between 12, over 12. But we hit the 1,000 really quickly. I
Yep.
want to say, and then I thought, surely we haven't hit that 1,000 already on that Skag because we use
Mm.
it a lot, and
Yep.
we hit it pretty quickly. But just little when you hit that 1,000, little things start going wrong, and then if it's been knocked or the deck's been knocked, you can get a warped deck, and
Yeah.
so you're up for trying to get it into the shop to make sure that that's always
Yeah.
sorted, or if it needs adjusting, you have to do it yourself if you've got the time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so just a few problems with the belts on my Skags at the moment that I
Yeah.
sort of
So
wasn't too
it
happy
wasn't
with.
doing that
Yeah.
when it was new, was it?
No, but then we've got the Toros. We run the Toro Grandstand, which we've still got,
Yeah.
and that doesn't have any of those problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check the the tensioner pulley. I've
Mm.
found this with a number of zero turns. When you get a lot of hours on them, the tensioner pulley gets a lot of slop in the pivot point, and then that's where the springs will start bouncing around, and the pulley will move around, and the belts get destroyed more
You're
often.
right.
So if you go back to that pivot point for the tensioner
Yep.
pulley, and get a fitter and machinist to get in there and fix it up so that it's got nice tight tolerances, so it doesn't
Yeah.
bounce around, and it'll get you back where you need to be,
Yeah.
quite likely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll look into that. But with the right standards and the motors, the engines mounted to the deck, so
Yeah,
you don't have that. Yeah, you don't really have that tension. And
yeah. So it's
I've heard them talk about what's his name,
Ed, right?
Ed Wright. I've listened to him talk about why they've done that,
Yeah,
and I've always wondered, well, is it really an issue? And then because I had running Toros, I didn't really have that issue with belts. I only had
yeah,
issues with belts if like a stick went in there and something happened to it,
yeah,
and so it obviously is an issue on some zero turns, and I'm thinking like the 61 especially because you got wider
yeah,
span between all your pulleys and that, and a bigger belt, and that's probably why all of that's happening. And then you've got this tension spring that's flogging out, which is pretty much the same type of spring that you'll house on a 52 inch.
that's it.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's something I noticed when I went to Walker. Their belts that they do use, because even though they're a shaft drive, they've still got a belt between the motor and the shaft, and they use a much shorter belt. And because it doesn't have to move up and down with the deck, it's fairly static, which means
Mhm.
a 1,000 hours, 1,200 hours on a set of belts, and that's totally unheard of on a regular mid mount zero turn.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Eh?
Yeah,
Like I'd go through belts. Like I carry about 3 belts, spare belts. So every 200 hours at least, no more than 200 hours. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm up to about 65 hours on the ZK at the moment, and it's using a 2 belt system. So it has a one belt that comes from the motor through to the deck, and another belt that runs off that to run the pulleys on the deck. So really well thought out system.
Hmm. So yeah, I might have to come over and see and test out their right stander. See how
Yeah,
it's
well,
going.
we'll catch up for a cuppa one day and have a look
Yeah,
around the site and give you a run on the ZK
yeah, yeah. We should do that. Eh?
for sure.
So 6 months you've been. I didn't even know you ran a ZK. 6 months. Think I saw you post something
Yeah.
once with a ZK, but I thought you were doing a demo on it.
Yeah, well, that has been the case. It's been a demo. So
All right.
when
Yeah.
I first got it, I asked Cox for a demo of the ZK,
Yeah.
and they said have it for a demo, and then you can buy it off us if you want to. And I actually just announced last week I'm going to be buying that machine off them.
Oh, that's good.
So
You've had it. You've had it for a good stint then.
yeah, so
Yeah.
Cox have been really good. They gave me a long demo on it, and they want to work with me on the podcast as well. So I'm
Oh,
looking
that's
forward to
good.
working with them.
Yeah. We've got a 32 right stander.
Yeah,
And we just put that on our residential lawns, and
yeah,
we enjoy it. Yeah, it's full time mulching, and took a while to get used to because the 32 is like it's a standard machine, right? But you don't drive it like a normal standard. There's certain things that you wouldn't do on a like a 52 than you would on a
yeah.
32.
Yeah, they're a lot
You'll
skinnier and
destroy
not as stable.
and you'll destroy lawns, right?
Yeah,
You put divots in lawns, rip it up. So you just got to. And I hear some people like saying, "Oh, they're no good," and they,
yeah,
but you just got to just like any other machine. You learn how to use it, and yeah, they can put out high productivity in your lawns. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think put it beside what it's competing with. Don't put it beside a 52 or a 61-inch machine, but put
yeah,
it beside a 21-inch machine or a 30-inch walk behind, and then treat it with the same sort of respect. And like you say, the productivity goes up as long as you remember that it's a small machine, and then you don't end up ripping divots in the lawn.
yeah, yeah. So every machine has got its limits. You just got to learn what those limits are and work with the machine and get the best out of it. I
Yeah.
feel. Yeah.
Well, Wright has also brought out a Stander I series, and Cox is bringing that into Australia now. So I'm really keen to try their 42-inch Stander. I think it's the only 42-inch Stander I've seen in Australia.
So yeah, I saw something on that. Is that wasn't it off a prototype, the earlier prototype that they had quite a few years ago, and they've
Maybe.
re-released it, and how we were talking about the engine sits on the deck and it moves up and down with the deck.
So
It's
they've got the Stander I series, which is what the
yeah.
42-inch is, and I think what you might be talking about, they're bringing out now the Stander LG.
Oh yeah, that's it. It's the algae.
So
Yeah,
the LG moves back to the format where the motor doesn't move with the deck anymore.
yeah. So
So it's
what's the eye? The eye that you're talking about?
So the I is it's a lower cost version of the X in that sense. So you've got the B series, the I series, the X series, and the ZK. So you go from the
Okay.
B series, which is at the start, which is aimed at the 32-inch and 36-inch market, and
Hmm.
then they have larger B series as well. But then the standard I starts at the 42-inch machine. So productivity is going to be ideally suited to those quarter acre properties.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you go up to the X, which is the X is almost identical to the ZK, except they run less horsepower. So if you if you're doing a property on a weekly basis or multiple times a week, then the X will do as good a job as the ZK. But if you need to be able to tackle the thicker, heavier, overgrown jobs, then the ZK's just got a lot more horsepower.
I'd rather have the horsepower.
Yeah, that's the way I looked at it too. I was like, I could probably do it with the X. And I seriously thought about that because the X has 27 horsepower.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, a 61-inch machine with 27 horsepower, if you're mowing it weekly, it'll do it.
Yeah.
But having the 37 horsepower means that anytime I need to do something a bit thicker or overgrown, it's no stress on the machine. It just does it.
So, and the deck on your ZK,
Yeah.
is it a shallow deck like a Skag, or is
really
it a deep deck like a Toro?
It's really deep. So have a look on their social media. They call it the AeroCore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite deep, but drop in and have a look.
I will, because I'm like interested to see how Skag have gone with their cutting decks, and it's quite shallow.
Yeah, okay.
And then comparing that to a Toro,
Yeah,
there's a lot of difference between having a deep deck, and if the right's got a deep deck on it, it's gonna. If you're thinking about putting it through some really long, thick grass, there's more volume within that deck to move that grass out to side shoot it.
There's an interesting machine I saw a couple of months ago. I went up to Queensland for BJ's event. I don't know if you saw that happening there, but I went over to PLP factory and did a tour of their warehouse and their factory. Mm-hmm. And had a bit of a play on a new Gravely that they've got. And this Gravely, it's right up there in terms of the more expensive Graveleys, high horsepower. But the deck, they call it a tunnel deck. So it's not really deep at the back of the deck, but it's got a really deep tunnel at the front of the deck. So when its side shoot is ripping down a lot of tall grass, it throws a lot of grass.
Yeah, yeah. So I can use like my Toro Z Master 6000.
Yeah.
Slash like the Americans get on my social media and they say, "What are you doing putting that mower through that grass? You're going to wreck the mower on top of it." And I'll put it through stuff like up to my chest, and it'll just get without stalling. And it's running a Kawasaki 31 in it.
Yeah.
And it seems like when the Kawasaki, you think it's going to bog down, it's like it hits another gear and just gives you a bit more of a boost, and it just pushes all that grass out the side. But if I try that on a certain other machine, I'll be bogged down all day. It doesn't matter that it's 37 horsepower or not.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I found the right. I put it through, when I first got it, I put it through really thick, tall grass like that. And the single pass on the thick, tall grass came up really nice. The second pass just made it look like it was cut fresh, even and smooth all over, whereas the single pass just had a couple of stragglers. But it went straight through it. Nice.
Yeah. Who's got the I've seen a lot of guys, I think they're further up north, that run the CKs, and they're putting them through really long.
The person who does the most work with the ZK is Kyle Kilgallen. He's down the South Coast.
South Coast, isn't he? And he's that's some Kyle. And so I've seen some of the stuff he gets through, and it's like acres and acres of long slashing.
Yeah.
And it's so it's pretty. It can get through the long grass, like acres and acres of it. Yeah. And he's not pushing it to one side; he's going back and forth over the same.
Yeah.
Same, and like a lot of people, they'll slash, but they'll just push it out one side and go in a circle. Yeah. He's just going up and down and going over the offcuts as well.
Yeah, to spread it better.
Yeah.
Yep. I think there was a guy up in Brisbane, I think, bought a couple of ZKs, and I think he was doing the Brisbane airport, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're certainly really high productivity. You get the 61 or the 72-inch ZK, and they cover a lot of acres.
Yeah, yeah. And so from sitting down to standing up, what do you prefer now that you've been riding a stander for, 6 months?
6 months. Look, it's personal preference, I think. So I would say if you have a problem with your knees, sitting down is probably going to be easier for you, whereas if you've got a problem with your back, standing up is going to be better for you. And then all the other factors, like if you're doing residential properties where you're on and off the machine, picking up bits and pieces that the customer leaves around or opening and closing the gates, then the stander is just easier for that sort of thing. Whereas if you're sitting down for 4 hours doing the same thing, as long as it's not a really rough property, sitting down is going to be quite comfortable after 4 hours, whereas standing up is going to be starting to make you feel fatigued.
I'd rather stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could stand for all day on a
Yeah.
stander mower. I just feel like when you're sitting down and you're on acreage and you're on that mower all day, like if I did that now, I feel like I've been at the end of the day. I feel like I've gone 12 rounds with Mike Tyson. Feels like someone's like
Yeah.
beating my body up because you do get pushed around a lot.
Yeah. And it's quite hard on your back sitting down.
Yeah, yeah. So I got back problems. I've had back
Yeah.
problems for a number of years. Yeah,
Yes, that's right.
yeah.
So the other thing I noticed, because some of the areas I mow with the ZK are up around 22 degrees slope.
Yep.
And I say around, but it's quite specific to say 22 degrees. But I've sat there with the phone, put it on the deck on the steepest part and measured it. So 22 degrees
Oh,
thereabouts.
right. It's pretty steep. So
Yeah,
are you going across or are you going up and down?
I go across. And the ZK
You go
handles it. It
across. Yep.
just moves across
Yeah.
without losing traction. So it's really good for
Yeah.
that. But it gets a little bit hard on your ankles and your knees because you're always standing while you're doing that. So your body's on that
You're
constant lean.
leaning. Yeah, you got to lean to one side, and then so the right standers there. Well, they had it patent, so the platform's in the right between the wheels.
Yes.
But I think it's even further in between the wheels than a skag.
Yeah, I'm
If
not sure
that's
exactly.
right.
I don't have the experience on the Skag that you do, so I can't
Yeah.
compare it evenly or fairly. But yes, the Wright has had the patents on that and the motor being attached to the deck, but all the patents have expired now. And I
Yeah.
believe Skag is just about to bring out a machine with the motor attached to the deck.
Oh, right. I
So,
didn't know they had a patent to the motor being attached to the deck as well.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's quite interesting. But I think that's why they can hug those hills pretty well. There's both the skag and the
And they're right.
and the rights, which is pretty amazing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the Toro 6000 sit down Z Master that can hug the hills pretty well,
Yeah.
which is quite surprising.
So do you go sideways along the slopes with that, or do you go up and
I'd
down?
go sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's heavy enough. Like it's heavy enough to go up and down as well. The front of it won't lift, but then
Yeah.
the Toro grandstand isn't really good on hills. It's too light on the front,
Now,
and
your grandstand, is that a 48 or is it
it's a 52. Yeah,
52? Okay, yeah.
52 cutting deck is a real good cutting deck.
Yeah,
I
it's
think that.
good
Yeah,
size.
yeah. I think if you're in the market to get into getting a ride on, and you're sort of doing that, you want to get into acreage. I think 52 is a good in between model, so you can do
Yeah,
smaller commercial properties, and then you can also knock out in a decent amount of time with a 52, quite a large, like 3 acre acreage properties,
yes.
and get get good productivity about it through it. I just feel that the 48 is probably just a bit too narrow. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I've had 48s before. I didn't really like them.
I've
Yeah,
traditionally gone for the 42 because it's going to get through more gates and tighter spaces than a 48 and
yeah,
fits on a smaller trailer.
yeah,
But then you go to the 52, or I had the 56-inch deck with the Walker, and you're typically going to fit the 52-inch machines on a 5-foot wide trailer, which means that it's a lot easier for you to tow with a 52-inch than if you go up to the 60-inch sizes.
yeah. And what was your largest cutting deck on the B, the Walker Bs?
It's a 56.
56, and then what about your footprint? It's a pretty long mower.
It is. It's a very long mower. It's up over
Yeah,
2 meters.
yeah.
So you can
So you need a
shorten
pretty
that
big
by putting
trailer.
the deck in the transport position, which lifts it up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I done that a few times with my Walker.
Yeah.
I was scared I was going to break the plastic wheels. They got those little round plastic wheels. I thought it was going to bounce up and down and
Yep.
do some damage. Yeah,
I have broken those plastic wheels doing exactly that.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's
you need a pretty big trailer to transport. Like the Super, I remember when the Super Bs came on the Walker.
yeah.
Do you remember those?
Yep.
And they're pretty big mowers.
Oh yeah,
Well,
they're massive.
they seem big to transport one of those around, but I could only imagine the productivity in them, because they were 70-inch cut.
I think they were up around the 70 or 72-inch cut. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they're the MH series.
yeah. You don't see too many of them. I used to see a few around, but you don't see too many of them around anymore.
No, I haven't seen a lot of them. They do still have them, but they don't have the ground speed of the other machines that we're using.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at the ground speed of the MH walkers, and they're not up as fast as what you're used to. So you're not getting 20 kilometres an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
I think they're around 16 from memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think we've covered a lot of stuff in the last hour and just clocked over an hour of time interviewing you.
Yeah, it's gone pretty quick, hasn't it?
Yeah. We've covered quite a lot. It's been good. Anything else in particular you reckon we should cover?
I can't think of anything. Any questions or anything? I'm pretty happy to ask, but no,
so that's it. I think we've covered everything that I wanted to ask.
Yeah, it's gone just like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I finally got on here, and it's been good to get on here and have a chat with you, Gary.
Oh, it's been great to have you. I appreciate finally tracked you down and got you on here.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on. And I'm going to take you up on that offer with the coming out and trying out your right stander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, feel free, give me a buzz anytime. But if you get the chance, I'm hoping that Wright's going to help me out with a demo on that Stander I-42 as well.
Yeah, we'll hook something up and get me out there, and I'd love to give it a go and get on and try it out.
But yeah, come and have a look at the robots as well.
I'll do that too.
That'd be
right,
good.
Mate.
All right, Martin, thank you so much for coming. I'll
thanks a lot.
Catch you around.
Okay, have a good one.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.